Hi, so this is a part 2 of the Amazon Q CLI video series, and in this particular video we are going to create from scratch the sample voting application, which will look something like this, as you can see here, where your team members can vote for your next outing destination, and this will be deployed into your own AWS account. And if you talk about AWS architecture for this application, then it should look something like this. So the front end will be hosted on Amazon S3, and then it will be API based application where every vote will be triggered as an API call, and in the backend it will trigger Lambda function, which will further update the DynamoDB table with your vote. And it can also fetch the results from the DynamoDB table so that the voting result can also be displayed on the front end. So this will be the application architecture. And additionally, if we want, we can also use our custom domain name for accessing this application. And in that case, there will be few additional components that we can add. For example, we can have route 53 for the custom domain name. And further, in order to make the website more performant, we can use Amazon CloudFront. But these are like optional services. So mostly we will focus on the architecture, which is with S3 API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB. And everything that we are going to build and deploy, it will be just using Amazon Q CLI. We are not going to do anything by going to AWS console, right? So that's the goal of our exercise. And with that, now let's go to Amazon Q CLI and let's set this up. So in the first part, we installed Amazon Q Developer CLI into a workstation, and I showed you how to install it on Mac and how to install it on Windows. Right, now I assume that you already have QCLI installed into your workstation, and if not, go to the previous video which you can find in the link above and then come to this video. Okay, now let's get started. So first thing we'll do is QChat. Now in this case, because we also want to deploy this application into our AWS account, QCLI needs to know how to access your AWS account. And it can do that using different methods, but the simplest method is to use AWS CLI, right? Which is different than QCLI. And hopefully you know that how to install AWS CLI and then how to provide your credential as in access key and secret key, right? So either you can do that manually as a prerequisite, or if not, QCLI itself can help you install AWS CLI. So let's see how to do that. And third step will be manual, because it is all about authenticating your AWS CLI. So you will quit the QCLI prompt and then you will configure your AWS CLI using your access and secret key. But if you already have AWS CLI installed into your terminal, then you don't need to perform steps 2, 3, and 4. Okay, once that is done, you will get back into the QCLI and then you will provide the prompt to build your application, to show the architecture, or to deploy that into your AWS account. So that's what we are going to do. Now let's go to QCLI and perform these steps. Okay. So because I'm using Windows, I can just type WSL, which is Windows Subsystem for Linux. And I had showed you this in the earlier video. So I'm into my Linux prompt, and here I'll just do QChat, right? And I get this prompt. Now, as I said, first thing we need to install the AWS CLI. So let's ask Q to install AWS CLI rather than I'm doing it myself. Now, this is another benefit of using Q CLI for installing application locally. So it tells you that it is helping you to install this, and it will automatically figure out what's your operating system is, which package to install. And just one thing that you need to tell that I trust this particular action, right? And that's what you are doing here. And now it will do rest of the things for you. Okay, it's asking for the password for the system. So let me provide that. And this is the password for WSL system. And if you're using Mac, you would have to provide the root credential there. Okay, so you can see that it has installed the AWS CLI and it is also testing whether CLI has been installed or not. And finally, it gives you the summary of all the steps that it has performed. And additionally, it is telling you that you have to configure AWS CLI with your access key ID and the secret key ID. So it is that easy to now install application, right? You ask QCLI and it will do it for you. Now, as I said, you have to quit this. So let's quit this and let's see if AWS CLI is there or not. So it is there and you can see its version as well. Now, next thing, let's configure our AWS credential, and I'm sure you know that how to do it. But if not, you have to just say AWS configure, and then it will ask you for the access key ID. Now, from where do you get this? So you get it from your AWS IAM console. Okay, just in case if you don't know how to get access key and secret key for your user, you can go to the IAM console, go to the users. So I have these two users, and then go to the security credentials, and then you can just go down here and you can create the access key, right? Now here, for security reason, I'm not showing you my access key and secret key ID, but of course you can do it for yourself. Okay, so I'm now putting my access key ID and the secret key ID. Now the region name, I'll keep it as, say, AP South 1 as my default region, and the output format could be JSON. Okay, that's done, which means AWS CLI has been configured. In order to test that, you can just try a few commands. For example, AWS EC2 describe instances. Now I don't have any running instances, so it should show blank result, and which is okay. Okay, now that being done, let's go to Q chat again. And now let's ask Amazon Q to create a serverless application for us. Now you can create any kind of application that comes to your mind. But to begin with, let's start with relatively simple application, which is like a voting application. And here the scenario is that maybe for your team, you want to create an application because you are planning to go for some outing as a team event, and you have finalized, say, 4 destinations, and you want team members to vote for any of those 4 destinations. So that's a simple web app that you want to build. And to begin with, first we will ask Amazon Q CLI what should be the architecture for this kind of serverless application, right? So let's do that now. So I'm pasting this prompt. Now I have also provided this prompt as a part of the description of this video, so you can copy it from there. But it essentially says the same thing, just that I'm not asking it to build the application as of now. I'm just asking it to suggest the ideal AWS architecture for this application. So let's see what we get. Okay, so it's saying that for the front end layer, it should be using Amazon CloudFront because it can cache the images and the response will be faster. And then if we want, we can have our own domain name, right? Then authentication should be with Amazon Cognito because we want that only your team member can sign up and vote. Further, there should be an API layer. So it has identified 4 APIs like which destination, vote, results, and in order to manage the user profile. And with respect to the backend, there is AWS Lambda, which means when somebody votes, it would trigger AWS Lambda and it will add that vote entry into Amazon DynamoDB. So there is a front end layer, there is an API layer, there is a compute layer, and there is a data layer. Now, in order to store the static images, which you will see on the UI, it can be stored in Amazon S3. Okay, now let's ask few more questions to Amazon Q CLI. For example, say show the block diagram or architecture diagram of this application. So currently it is creating text-based architecture diagram because it cannot generate the real diagram. And in the part 3 of this series, I will show you how to create AWS architecture diagram using Amazon Q CLI. Okay, so it is thinking, and let's wait for maybe few seconds. Okay, as you can see here, it has come up with very nice flow diagram where you see there should be users who are sending HTTPS request. Further, you can have your custom domain name. So the domain name is being resolved using Amazon Route 53. Then the request goes to Amazon CloudFront, and then the static images and the JavaScript HTML pages will be rendered from Amazon S3. And on that page, the functionality is there to sign up and sign in for the users. That is being handled with Amazon Cognito, which passes the JWT token, which are verified by the API gateway for any actions. Now, as per the user action, the Lambda function gets triggered. So there are different Lambda functions, and finally they interact with DynamoDB to save the state. Okay, so it's saying that it has created the architecture diagram, and these are all the features of that diagram. Okay, so this is well done, I think. And now is the important thing. Now we want to actually create this application and deploy into our AWS account. Now, while we wanted this application to be accessible over custom domain name, but as you know, for that we need to buy a domain name and configure that into Route 53. But to simplify this deployment and not to do anything manually, let's not use Amazon Route 53 at this point. And additionally, CloudFront is also not required, but let's see if Amazon CLI deploys the CloudFront or not, right? But otherwise, we should always have Amazon S3, API Gateway, Lambdas, and DynamoDB as a part of this application. So let's say, can you build all the application components and deploy it into my AWS account in Mumbai region. Also, do not use custom domain name, so you can skip Amazon Route 53. Okay, so let's see what it does. Okay, so now it's trying to access my AWS account using different CLI commands, and then now it is, say, creating the DynamoDB table here. Just that we have to press T every time if you want CLI to trust you, right? So it's going on creating now DynamoDB table, which has been done. Now it's creating S3 bucket for static images. Now it tries different approaches, and if the CLI fails, it understands that why it failed, and it will try different CLI command. So you will see these kind of things happening all the time. Okay, so it has now created S3 bucket, and at the same time, it is also configuring the right bucket policies, because it's a publicly accessible application. You would have to, disable the block public access and enable the right policy on your S3 bucket. And now it is creating the Amazon Cognito user pool so that user can sign up and then sign in. Now again, it is trying different commands, and if it fails, it will try and identify why the command failed, and then it will, execute those commands. Further, it is creating now IAM role for the Lambda function so that it can read and write to the DynamoDB table. So you can see that there is this IAM role, and now it is creating the role with right trust policy with Lambda basic execution role, and here is a policy for the IAM role. So it can get the items from the DynamoDB, update the items like that. Now after that, again, there will be some additional things that it will do, and the most important is create this Lambda function. So okay, it is creating get destination.py, similarly submit vote.py, and further get results so that you know which destination has got the maximum votes, and finally user can also see his or her vote, right? So all this is done, and now it's creating a zip file for this Python code so that it create a Lambda function. Okay, so now it has created this Lambda function, as you can see here, and there are 4 Lambda functions getting created. Okay, so Lambda functions have been created. Now it's creating the API gateway, and it's a REST API, and as mentioned in the architecture diagram, there will be 4 different APIs. So it's trying to do that, and before creating the API gateway, it knows that API gateway will trigger a Lambda function, and that's where it is waiting for that Lambda function to be created. So it also understands that dependency on different AWS services. Okay, so that is done, and now it is populating DynamoDB with the sample destinations, because we did not tell the application which 4 destinations user will voting against. So these are all the nice locations in India. So you will shortly probably see the nice UI with the pictures of these destinations. Okay, so all that AWS thing has been done, and now what it is doing is creating index.html, which can be accessed locally if we want, or it can also be deployed on the S3 and you can access it through Amazon CloudFront. Right, so it is also adding some styles. That means we are expecting, nice UI there. So style.css, and further it will create some JavaScripts to click the button, and then calling API gateways on the click of the button. So all that functionality is being implemented in hopefully JavaScript. Okay, you can see that there is a app.javascript, and then in that you have all that functionality. Now finally, as I said, I don't know whether it will upload the index.html to S3 or not, but if you see this command, it is copying index.html to the S3 bucket. And finally, I expect that it also creates the CloudFront distribution and points that to the S3. So let's wait until it uploads all the artifacts to the S3 bucket. So here it has also uploaded JavaScript, and now it is modifying the S3 bucket policy so that it can be accessed as a website. Okay, so I think it is done creating the application, and it is a complete summary of what it did. And it also gives us the endpoint for the S3 bucket, which means it did not create the CloudFront distribution. And probably that's because we said that, forget about the domain name as of now. So it also skipped the CloudFront. But that's not very hard. You can just create or just tell the CLI that also add Amazon CloudFront. And then it should ideally create the CloudFront distribution and point it to the S3 bucket endpoint. Okay, so we have this URL which we can copy. And if everything has done perfectly, then I'm expecting that we can access this website using this URL. So it's time to go to the browser and validate whether this application is built correctly or not. So let's do that. Okay, so let's put this S3 URL and we get a nice UI page, which is absolutely not bad. Now it also asks us to sign in or sign up. So let me sign up with my email ID and some password, and let's sign up. Okay, so you can see here, when I sign up, it is not working. That means something is broken. And this may also happen with you, right? So typically you would have to tell the CLI that it is not working as expected. For example, if you go to the developer tools, okay, it says that there is this uncaught exception. So you have to just copy everything from here, and you have to tell your CLI that it is giving you some error. So let's tell that to the CLI. I'm getting following error when sign up, and you can press Ctrl J to go to the new line, and you can paste this error. So this really helps you to troubleshoot your issues as well. So let's see what it says. Okay, so it says that Amazon Cognito SDK isn't loading properly. So let me fix it, and it has now fixed the app.js, and it should ideally upload it to the S3 as well, so that we get the updated app.js. Okay, so it has updated the JS file, and it is automatically also updating the sign-in function as well. So it understands that it has to check it everywhere, right? So it has been done now. Further, it's checking at other places, and now it is saying that it has to also update the HTML file so that it refers to the right JS, and it has updated index.html, and now it is uploading that to the S3, right? So upload is in progress, and for all these AWS command, it is using our AWS CLI authentication. So, okay, it has done doing that, and it says that what it has fixed. Okay, so now let's go back again to the same URL and try to access the application. Okay, now let's refresh the UI and let's go back to the sign up and provide the email ID. So let me provide my email ID and sign up. Okay, it said that it created the account and it has sent an email with the verification code. So let me grab that. Okay, so you can see that there is this code. Let me take that and provide that and verify. So it says email verified successfully. That means sign up functionality is working fine. And we just need to log in again. And you see this beautiful page with 4 different destinations and with the voting button, right? So I think this is great. We have fully working app where you can vote, and this is completely serverless, as I said, with AWS Cognito for authentication. For UI, it is S3. Then for the APIs, it's API Gateway. For compute, it's Lambda. And for the database, it's Amazon DynamoDB. Right. Now with that, let's try if the voting works for this or not. So, and there are the results as well. So say I want to go for Goa. So it says yes, vote submitted for Goa, and we can also change the vote. And here you can also see the results, as in how many people voted for which destination. So isn't it great? As you can see here, we built fully working app with just using Amazon CLI. Now in your case, you might find some issues, some problem as you go on testing your app. Like I also face some issues. So in that case, just provide that error in the CLI app and it will fix it and update your app automatically. Okay, before I stop, one more thing is that typically you would want to know how much it will cost if you build this kind of application, right? So for that, again, you can go back to your Amazon CLI console. Okay, so let's ask a simple question. How much would it cost if there are, say, 100 users and they all vote, right? So it's now breaking down the cost as per different AWS services being used. So there is Amazon Cognito, which says that there are some monthly free quota. That's where you will probably pay $0. And for most of the rest of the services as well, the cost is $0 because it's covered under AWS free tier quota. So absolutely you are paying really very less for this, but otherwise you can also increase number of users and try different combinations, and Amazon CLI will provide the approximate cost. So the point here is that you don't need to really go to AWS calculator and add those services manually. Amazon CLI can do that for you. Not only that, maybe you don't want to host this application in a serverless fashion, but you want to host that on Amazon ECS, which is a container service, or on Amazon EC2. So you can ask those questions to Amazon CLI, as in, if I host this on EC2, then how much it would cost, and can you compare these two different solution architecture approaches? So it's a great tool. Please try and experiment with this tool. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And just one last thing, because we have deployed all these components into our AWS account, make sure that you delete those components. Otherwise, there can be some cost if there is some usage. And this application is publicly available. That means anyone can sign up, which is not a great thing. So rather you delete everything. And if you really want to create it for, say, your company, then as I said, you can have Amazon Cognito to only allow the users from particular email ID domain. Right. So I hope you enjoyed this exercise. So in this part 2, we have completed this step, And in the next part, I will show you how to extend the capabilities of Amazon Q CLI with MCP, that is Model Context Protocol, which in short means that you provide additional tools to your CLI and then it can use those tools for different functionalities. For example, if you want to create real AWS architecture diagram with AWS icon and all for this application, currently this CLI cannot do that because it doesn't know how to create those architecture diagrams. But if you add corresponding MCP server to its configuration, then it understands that and it can use external tool to create that diagram. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications so that you know when I release that video. Thanks for watching and see you soon in the next video.